lead you directly into your destiny, or it will drive you away from your destiny. Your destiny will not change because God knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. He also knew that you would be called. He also knew that you would be chosen. He also knew that you would be doing the things that you would be doing. The time factor of reaching your destiny is the only thing that's within your control. And that depends on your obedience and disobedience to God. Your path can be short or long. It's all up to you and how obedient you are to the will of God. You've got to realize that if you're going to reach your destiny in Christ, many times you're going to have to go through the valley. You must move from your place of safety and comfort, walk through the valley, and face your giants in your life before you can get to the other side, which is called victory. Many would just assume to bypass the valleys of life. I know about if I could avoid going through half the things that I've been through, I would avoid it. Where are people who always want the good? Oh, we won't take the bad that comes with that good. There are so many obstacles that we try to avoid just to get to the promise that we feel that we are destined to achieve. When we try to avoid the valley, that can sometimes abort our purpose. But it is the obstacles that create integrity. It is the obstacles that create character. Not every obstacle is going to come from an outside source or an outside individual. Some obstacles are going to come within our very selves. One of the obstacles that we allow to hinder us from where God is taking us is fear. We should always know and understand that there is never a reason to fear where God has already ordained us to go. But the reality is that fear is very prevalent in the lives of even us Christians, even us preachers. There's a lot of fear in us. We have fear of actually succeeding. We always have fear of what others will think of us. We always have fear of failing. We always have fear of repeating past failures. We always have fear of launching out into the deep. We always have fear of trying anything new. But we can be encouraged in knowing that God has not given us the spirit of fear. Turn to your neighbor and tell them to follow your destiny. And if we can be so careful as to seek God in every endeavor that we're looking to achieve, He'll give us the answers, and we'll know the true definition of fear being false evidence appearing real. Sometimes we have fear within us because we may have been witness to a failure. Sometimes we have fear within us because we have fallen before. Sometimes we have fear in us because we don't think that we can do certain things. Our bishop used to tell us all the time, when you fall or fail, you get back up, dust off your bootstraps, and get back to work. When you fall, we have to learn that we can't stay down. Sometimes when we fall into this pity party. But we have to know that we have to get back up and work toward where God is taking you. We've always got to remember that we can do all things through Christ that strengthens us. Yes. I dealt with the spirit of fear more times than I can count. I had to realize that when I operate in the spirit of fear, it creates a sense of failure. There are times we're not going to have all the answers. And I know a lot of times I always want to have the answer. I always want to make the decision on my own. I want to make the decision fast. I talk about how my mother spoiled me most of my life, all 36 years of it. And there were times where I felt like I wanted things when I wanted them. And although I got them when I wanted them, I kind of still tend to live my life that way. But just because we don't have all the answers, it doesn't denote that we will fail at what God is assigning us to do. Another thing that keeps us from our destiny will be a loss of self-esteem. I was on the prayer line a few weeks ago and I prayed. And one thing that God has been dealing with me with and praying for a lot of other people is self-confidence. A lot of times we don't do the things that God is calling us to do because of self-confidence. There's a lot of times where Bishop or Pastor will talk to me about certain things and I'm always scared. I was scared to take the platform over that. But I had to realize that when God calls you, God calls you. Whether we admit it or not, many of us have endured such abuse from others that have developed a poor perspective of who we are in the Lord and where He might be taking us. Whether the abuse has been verbal, mental, physical, or emotional, its effects can cause us to believe that we are less than who God said we are. More specifically, the abuse has a peculiar way of damaging our self-esteem, our self-confidence. If you have consistently heard things like, you're too ugly. If you have heard things like, you're too fat. If you have heard things like, why do you think you'll become a homeowner when your whole family still lives in the projects? If you've heard things like the cycle of children born in your family is out of wedlock, so why do you think it'll stop you? If you hear things like, God will never forgive you for those mistakes. If you heard things like you'll never get that degree or you'll never get that high school diploma because no one in your family has ever gotten one. Chances are, these particular people will be taking a residence in your spirit and within your inner man and cause you to believe that you cannot achieve things of substance. We've got to remember that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God.